You don't need Netflix, you don't need cable. Hop on YouTube, welcome to the hood table, where we chop up local and global events vocally. You don't really wanna miss out on these conversations. Just joke a little, laugh a little, get that wine in your system, fill your glass a little, expose current event talk, trash a little. You never know, these opinions might clash a little. They addicted to the content, got them binge watching. You don't like it, then you want invited. Bet your friends watching in the house and your job parking lot before you clocking. They don't wanna miss a second of this HT content. Everybody think they got something to say, so it's an open invitation, bring it to the table. But if you come whack, just know we ain't buying in. We gon' probably turn you back and tell you sorry, try again, Yeah, welcome to the hood table. You don't need Netflix, you don't need cable. Yeah, welcome to the hood table. You don't need Netflix, you don't need cable.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hood Table one more again. While you coming on into the chat, make sure you show us some love as usual. Make sure you like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the Hood Table platform if you're not already subscribed. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, IG, and at thehoodtable.com. And with all that being said, as you guys can see from the title of the show, we are going to be discussing mental health issues in the Black community. And we have a guest with us, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Shelia Kirksey.
Hi, Shelia. Thanks for joining us. And this is actually her second time with us. We actually did a show with her. It seems so like maybe a year ago, was it? Was it that?
Maybe early winter, maybe February.
Yep. So it's about a year ago. We had did a show on sexual trafficking. In the Black community. That was a really great show. So if you guys didn't see that, look that show up because it was really interesting and full of a lot of knowledge and information from Shelia as well. So we wanted to bring her back again because we now want to discuss, mental health issues, depression issues, that is really common in the Black community that a lot of people don't want to talk about, discuss, or focus on. And here's Carmel Diva back in the chat. Hey, hon.
Hey. How y'all doing tonight? Hey,
we
Hood
good.
Table fam.
We good. I was just introducing Shelia and having her, introduce herself. So you can take over. Sharon, go ahead.
That's my big head little cousin. I love her to death. But she's also a very intelligent woman, clinical psychologist, and I don't think she's led anybody astray yet. So not purposely anyway, but she is who we go to when we are when we have questions. And I think our family is finally starting. Lord, I'm making up words. They are starting to broaden their horizons and to ask those mental health questions, about depression and, mental anxiety, stuff like that. And I can't think of anybody better to have that discussion with than this young lady here, Shelia Kirksey.
Thank you guys again for having me. It's always a good time, and just educating others and just making a more normalized conversation about mental health is important. For far too long, it's a taboo topic to talk about mental health, and it's like, oh, they just crazy, but it's not that simple. It's much more complex. And mental health is something that touches everybody. It's not something that, is bound by race or gender or sexual orientation. Everybody has to maintain their mental health. And so I think that's the importance of making sure that this is a topic that is discussed. It's not something that's taboo or something that people should be afraid to talk about. Just like you have health issues, you got to take care of your mental health. It's equally important. So I'm glad to be a part of this discussion. And I'm looking forward to hearing you guys' insights and questions. And let's make it a normal conversation.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
totally
Thanks.
agree. It really has to be a normal conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of started out. We were just having a conversation in the back, before a show one day, and I was talking to Tanya, and I'm like, we don't spend enough time talking about mental health in the Black community, and I'm like, it's like the subject is still taboo to us, and you don't, for some reason, we don't want to get stuck with that stigma. And
Right.
why is that? Why, what is the stigma about? Why are we scared to talk about it?
Mhm.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it's a variety of reasons that for far too long, for decades, even centuries, that the mental health issues within the Black community are kind of suppressed or they're passed off by other descriptors. Oh, that girl just wild, or oh, she just crazy, or my bipolar acting up today. And it's we have to take away those misconceptions and the myths of what mental health means.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that has hindered the discussion.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot of shame that surrounds that too.
Yeah.
Oh, there's some feedback. Sheila,
Hmm.
do you have multiple screens open, Sheila, or are you on a headphones or anything?
No, not on my end. Is that any better?
Yeah, I think
No, I still hear it.
no. I still
I
hear it.
can't. Um,
Let me take you out and then come back in.
okay.
That might help. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have her address that because I think one thing with the stigma, some people think is embarrassing. It brings shame on them. It brings shame on their family. It's kind of like having a drunk or a crackhead or a child predator in the family. Is like so as long as where people want to keep it hush hush, they don't want to discuss it. They just don't want them around. You know,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
just kind of they crazy. Don't invite them to the picnics. Don't invite them to the birthday parties.
Right. Instead of addressing it and not necessarily bringing it out to the open, but trying to get this person the help that they need so that they can live a normal life.
Yeah.
Hey.
How would you address that, Sheila, as far as when you was talking about the stigma? Like a lot of people sometimes don't address it in their family because for one, we knew how a lot of us grew up, what happens in this house stays in this house. And it brings some shame on people. Like I was saying to Carmel Diva, kind of along the lines of drugs, liquor, child
Hmm.
predators. Sometimes people just want to ignore these people with these mental health issues, depression, and just like stay away, keep them away, or keep them in
Hmm.
the house, or it's like a shame. People are ashamed to like
Hmm.
say, you know,
Well, I think first, is the feedback gone? Can you guys hear me
Yeah.
okay?
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot better.
Okay. I don't know what was contributing to that. Um, I think it goes back to what I originally said. At least one variable that could help reduce the stigma is just as if you had some type of ailment. I'm not feeling good. My throat hurts, or I got this lump that won't go away. If you're having those types of health issues or medical conditions, there's no shame in saying, "Hey, I need to go to the doctor and get this checked
Hmm.
out. Hey, I need to make an appointment. I need to see the specialist. I need to go see my PCP." That same approach has to be applied when, you know what, I've just been feeling down and I can't shake this.
Right.
Why am I crying continuously? Why am I constantly irritable? Why are
Hmm.
my moods, swinging, cycling without any type of known cause? Or, why do I just feel so withdrawn? It has to have that same approach to when I'm feeling these type of symptoms and it's consistent and I can't shake it off. I need to go talk to somebody about this. I need to go see what's wrong. Because if your mental health is not intact, it's not stable, that could also contribute to medical conditions, health issues, physical ailments. And so you
Hmm.
kind of have to have that same approach or mentality that something could be wrong that isn't necessarily physical, but mentally I'm just not off. I'm not on my square. Emotionally, I'm feeling some type of way. Let me go see what's going on.
And I can
Right.
speak from experience
A more
that,
normalized experience.
I can speak from experience. A couple of years ago when I first got diagnosed, I didn't really say much to the family. But
Mhm.
I have to give credit where credit is due. And the fact that, we've been tight as, we've been thick as thieves since we was knee high to a duck. You was kind of like, cuz you don't seem like yourself. You not, is everything okay? Is everything all right? And I'm looking at you like, yeah, I'm fine. And you like, nah, you're not fine. I did not notice it. I did not see the changes in myself, but
Mhm.
other people around me had.
Mhm.
And once I started going to therapy and got on the right medications, I
Mhm.
did start to feel like myself again. Then I could see the changes that I was making, like you said, a little more withdrawn, and the irritability, the mood swings, and I was like, okay, well, damn, how come everybody around me saw this but me? I
Mhm.
mean, now I see the signs. I can tell when I'm starting to feel a little unbalanced. So I'm like, okay, maybe I need to go see my therapist and
Yeah.
talk to her and see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I from experience, I can say I went reluctantly at first. I was like, I don't know, this lady can't do nothing for me that I can't
Mhm.
do for myself. I got Jesus. I don't need her. And honey, let me tell you, her and Jesus work hand in hand.
Mhm.
They work hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I did finally go and get that attention and that help that I needed.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I like how you mentioned Jesus, because this kind of goes along with the other field, the health field, like you were saying, Sheila. If you feel like you're sick, you got a sore throat, some people are scared to go to the hospital and face whatever they might be dealing with.
Mhm.
It's kind of like the same thing with the when you're depressed or have mental health issues. Some people might think something's wrong with them, and then it still takes somebody else calling it out.
Yeah.
Because I think with depression and mental health is a little bit more difficult for somebody to say, "My name is Tanya, and I have a mental health issue,"
Right.
because it's not like you're alcoholic where you're drinking all the time, or you crackhead and you're smoking all the time, and you can see it, like you can physically see
Mhm.
it.
Something tangible.
Right. But
Hmm.
then like other people are like, as far as God, if something's wrong with me, I'm gonna just pray about it, go to church, talk to my pastor. And talking to your pastor is good, but sometimes you need to step away because like Carmody was said, that medicine, God, that can work together.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
I think that goes into the discussion. I mean, as an African American population or just as
Mhm.
a unit, that for decades, and you think about all the experiences and events that have happened to us as a population, the response has always been, we got to pray about it. Prayer resolves
Right.
everything, and take it to God. There's nothing God can't handle, et cetera, et cetera. And there's nothing wrong with that approach. Whatever your religious and spiritual beliefs are, that's great. But
Yeah.
sometimes the answer to that prayer is you need to go talk to this doctor. You need to go talk to that therapist. You need to use this
Hmm.
avenue, these outlets that are being placed along your path to help
Right.
resolve some of these issues.
Right.
Cause
But I
you.
think again, when people step outside of that spiritual realm or that religious practice that they hold with such honor, and there's not, again, I want to stress, there's nothing wrong with that. They feel like they're not being as faithful or they're not relying on their faith as they should if they step outside of these bounds. And I think that's a disservice. Because sometimes, again, the answer to that prayer could be, hey, this card that somebody gave you to go talk to this therapist, or the fact that you have insurance and you can go get, mental health treatment. So people need to, you can utilize your spiritual beliefs and your religious beliefs to help you, navigate these experiences, but there's nothing wrong with also getting additional assistance.
Because I know when I first started talking about, their feedback is bad. But when I first started talking about it, there were certain folks that were, oh, I had depression and I had it for 5 days and I prayed and it was gone. And I'm like, baby, you was just upset. That
Like a common cold. It just went away.
I'm like, if prayer worked like that, then honey, nobody would be depressed. It wouldn't happen. And I'm like, at first it upset me because I didn't have the support that I needed from my family, from the ones that I trusted the most. It was like I said, oh, pray it away. Oh, girl, you better get over that and go on. Or what you got to be depressed about? And it was like, baby, if I knew that, then I would have jumped that
conversation.
Right.
Yeah, but I think that's just a lack of understanding. I don't think the intention behind that feedback is necessarily like to kick you while you're down. I just think some people don't understand it in its full capacity and how complex it is. And that's just ongoing education. That's the only way to address it. And while also knowing, despite this feedback that I'm giving or that I'm getting or receiving and they don't understand it, you still have to do what's best for you.
Right.
And if that means stepping outside of that prayer realm to get some additional help, then do that.
Right. And I think another thing that might help too, as far as dealing with family, is maybe dealing with the people you trust the most in your family, because we all know family is like friends. There's some friends you can tell stuff. You can tell them I think something wrong with my head. And next thing you know, it's all over Facebook. They done told everybody, they done dragged it out. She's crazy. She need to go to the hospital. And then, you got to have somebody that you can trust as well, that you can really communicate with, because some people won't be as too open with it. They'll think, like you said, just pray about it. You'll be fine. It'll go away. But, some people feel like talking about their depression, regardless what it is they're depressed about or their mental health issues, is like airing out dirty laundry.
Right.
When they're talking to people, and it goes back to what happens in our house stays in our house, and we have to get away from that. Like, you have to talk to people. You have to get it out, because we see it all the time. And there's a lot I have read, and I don't know the right stats, but I did read somewhere where they said like 20% of African Americans are likely to have mental health issues. And also they mentioned suicide. And me personally, I really never looked at African Americans as being like in high statistics for suicide, because it's like we really don't see that on the news.
Right, and that's always been a big stigma with our community. We don't do suicide.
And we don't do stuff like that, right?
And that's a myth within the mental health realm, or within this topic that we're talking about, that suicide is very real and is very prevalent amongst African Americans. Are we the highest population of individuals that are impacted by it? No, but it's still significant.
Right.
So that's important, and you have to challenge those myths. And the fact that sometimes these people don't have individuals to reach out to, or just to say, hey, something's wrong, or hey, I'm even thinking along these lines. That's where, that when you think about the nature of suicide, you have to be in a pretty desperate state to feel like that's your only way out, And so I always stress that you never know just by saying, hey, are you all right? You okay? What that can open up.
Right.
Because it's not really that Black people, have more mental issues than white people, but it's more like white people it's a higher percentage of them that seek treatment. Now, do you think that has something to do with finance, with healthcare?
I think it's a variety of reasons. Access to resources. If whatever mental health, or not mental health, but whatever health coverage you do have, does your coverage offer the component of accessing mental health services? Again, the stigma behind it. What resources are within your community that you can access? Do you have a way to get there? Do you have the specialists that you can connect with? When I went to therapy, I didn't want to sit across the table from somebody that couldn't relate to me.
Right.
That's why it's so important. And, you know, I'm big on Black therapists. We need more of them, male and females. And so it's several variables that contribute to that. But yes, I do think a lack of resources, accessibility to mental health resources, as well as the stigma, plays a role in why more African Americans don't access it. And I think when you take the discussion a step further, when you look at the roles that men and women within African American communities take on, you have the Black woman, that's the mother of the household. You hold everything down, you take care of the kids in these traditional roles, I should say. You know, you have to be the superwoman. And then in the other, conversely, the traditional role of the man being the breadwinner, going to work. If you have to step away from those badges of honor to say, hey, something's off, I need to take care of me for a second, it's a level of shame, a level of guilt that I have to be here for my family. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do because I'm not on top of my game. And so you keep pushing and you keep pushing, but your symptoms are getting worse. And so all of those variables kind of contribute to why these things go untreated, unnoticed, and they lead to other issues.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we got some questions. Hold on. I'm trying to figure out where exactly the background is coming from. It seems like it comes real quick and then it just goes away.
I can't
But
hear anything, so I don't know.
We do got a few questions in the chat, and everybody feel free to ask Sheila questions. She, you know, this is her background. She deals with, you know, dealing with families and mental health and different type of issues like that. So feel free to ask her questions. She's been in this field a very long time. Somebody said, what role does weather play in depression?
There's actually a diagnosis called seasonal affective disorder. And it's more common in winter months, mainly because there's less sunlight, the weather is more dreary, you're stuck on the inside more. Generally, depending on what region that you live in, it's during the winter months, anywhere from like November to maybe March, especially in the Midwest, if you're looking at when the winter months really take shape. But yes, there is a significant play in depression, and there is actually a diagnosis, seasonal affective disorder, that many individuals suffer
Now
with.
that's dealing with the light treatment, though, isn't it? Now,
I'm sorry, repeat that?
I said that's dealing with light. The therapy for that is typically light treatment, isn't it?
It could be a variety. It's not one particular modality. It just depends on how that diagnosis, how are your symptoms manifesting. But it is a mood disorder. So cognitive behavioral disorder, cognitive behavioral therapy would be the appropriate modality or the most commonly used modality when you're treating mood disorders in general. But light therapy could be utilized with it.
Yeah, and I can see that being like an issue, like where we live in Omaha, Nebraska. Our winters be harsh, like
ain't no sunshine when she's
you're
gone.
stuck in the house all the time, and then topple that off of if you have other things going on. It's cold as heck outside. You can't get out the house. You know. Wintertime for a lot of people can be depressing as well because of the holidays. They might not have their loved ones around anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad 402 Revenue asked that question. And I just want to mention real quick before you comment against Sheila or Carmelita, somebody in the chat said they're convinced that Sunday school should be replaced for mental health groups. She said it's greatly ignored. I think what she's trying to say is it's greatly ignored in the church.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I would agree. Again, we have to make it a normal part of our experience. And if going to church or Sunday school is a routine practice of any particular person, regardless of race, not just Blacks, then why wouldn't we make that type of discussion a part of our normal topics that we can access? Again,
Yes,
the
and they
Black
have other
church.
things like couples therapy or couples
Yeah,
counseling, things
yeah.
like that in
I
church.
mean, the Black church has always been a pillar of any happenings within the community. So why not make it accessible? Make mental health groups, mental health treatment accessible within the church.
Hmm.
You can reach the masses, and if again, it's normalizing the discussion around mental health. So I agree with what is it, 2216 production. I
Uh-huh.
agree that that would be an awesome avenue.
Yep.
I know before I moved to Texas, the church that I was attending when I lived in Atlanta, they were actually gearing up a whole mental health ministry to try to
Oh,
have
wow.
outreach within the church and making it more accessible and having regular discussions and Saturday groups where you could come and talk to somebody within the church who did have a mental health background and not just going to talk to a deacon or this pastor, but somebody who
Mm-hmm.
was credentialed that knew, that was more versed in it and understood the complexities behind it. So I think more churches, more um, entities that have that type of reach should consider that type of intervention.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Right.
I think that's great. Now, one thing that I did want to ask and kind of address this damn coronavirus. And um like I say this, our kids are already overloaded, more overloaded than we were in high school and in school period, as far as issues that they have to deal with. How do we um, notice the signs, the symptoms of depression in these kids, especially with this coronavirus and stuff going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's, one of the easiest things is just keeping that line of communication open. Being able to talk to your kids about how they're feeling and being in tune to what they're experiencing, what they're feeling, and allowing them to be more vocal.
Hmm.
Again, it goes back to that whole, speak when spoken to and stay in a child's place, da 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 da. But
Mm-hmm.
empowering these kids to use their voice and choice in a constructive manner so that they do feel more comfortable speaking out if something is bothering them. That's the easiest resolution to find out how they're feeling. So just giving them an avenue to talk more.
Right.
But some of the symptoms, it could mirror that depression, what it looks like in an adult to some extreme.
Hmm.
It could be isolation, being more withdrawn, interruptions in their sleep patterns. They're having trouble going to sleep, or they don't want to sleep, or they're sleeping too much. Um, Clinginess, especially in the smaller school age kids, that they just seem really clingy and don't
Right.
want to leave. They have a lot of separation anxiety. Those can be an array of any of the symptoms.
Mm.
But
Well, I know
it's just being mindful and aware. I'm sorry, go ahead.
when you speak of the kids in schools, I had read like a few years ago. It was Jay-Z. He was doing like a mental health representation with CNN's Van Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and Jones has said, as scared as Black folks are of cops, we are even more scared of therapy. And Jay Z responded that it should be in schools because kids have the most going on. We parents, like, if you're a parent, you done said it probably a million times. I got all this going on. I can't do everything. You expect me. I can't remember, whoop, whoop, whoop. And we do think we have the most going on.
Right.
But we don't realize or fail to realize that children actually have the most going on, especially when you're going through that tween stage from a kid
Mm-hmm.
to teenage state, and you have all these
Puberty.
peer pressure and dealing with homework, and now the Rona, the kids is cooped up in school. At home, they going crazy just like the adults.
Exactly. They don't have their normal outlets. The typical socialization that they get just from being at school and interacting with their peers. That's
Hmm.
depressing as hell. I mean, I'm depressed just sitting up in the house. So just again, acknowledging that they have feelings and emotions just like we do. And so
Hmm.
allowing them to express that if they are feeling, less than normal, whatever that
They
may
don't
be.
get no damn emotions in my house, okay? No, I'm just playing.
Yeah. But I mean, really paying attention to that. And sometimes, some of the symptoms that we talk about, irritability, symptoms of depression, let me be clear about that. You talk about irritability, outbursts are very common in kids where they just have verbal outbursts. It can be misdiagnosed. So that kid just bad, or you just so disrespectful. That's not the
Right.
case. What's the root cause of that? Where's this anger coming from? Why are you so irritable? So just always asking that why question until you can get to something that makes more sense. It's
Right.
not just coming from somewhere. They're irritable, they're angry for a reason.
Right. Well, we got a Miss on-site April in the chat. She says, so people do, like in the Black communities, they say,
Mhm.
don't tell outsiders what's going on in our house, what you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling or what you're going through. Then when people seek help for their mental health issues, they're deemed crazy, slow, retarded, things
Yeah.
like that. And that's a part of the shame. That's a part of Black people not wanting to did like a long time ago, a lot of us in school would show our natural Black behinds, right? And the
Mhm.
first thing they want to do is what? Put you on that same medicine that they putting all them other kids on at school instead of trying to find out the real reason, what's going
Right.
on.
What's
And it's
causing
sometimes
it?
is something going on at home, but the parents don't want to bring that out. They're just
Yeah.
like, my kids got a problem. Well, when you ask them what's going on at home, oh, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong.
Yeah. That's
Could
part
be
of
all
the
kind of
problem.
stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I get it. I mean, it's a rhyme and reason as to why many people take that approach of what happens in this house stays in this house because there are consequences to certain disclosures. We don't
Yeah.
have the liberty to speak out about certain things without bringing, other state agents into our home because it's misinterpreted or they don't understand the culture or a lack of
Right.
cultural competence. So I get it. But again, it goes back to how we introduced this whole topic at the beginning of the show is challenging these stigmas, challenging these myths, making the discussion of mental health a more normal conversation. It doesn't have to be something that we're sitting in a corner whispering about. When you're sitting at the table talking about the weather, you're talking about sports, you're talking about politics, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Why do you feel sad? Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We need to stop suffering in silence.
Very true.
Too many
Very
people
true.
are suffering in silence without seeking treatment. And that's what we have to do, especially, I mean, I hate to say especially right now, but the way the world has shifted over the last
Mhm.
4 years, like we already had so much to deal with racism and mistreatment and police brutality, but it just kicked it up a whole notch,
Right.
within the last 4 years. And then top of that with the coronavirus and being cooped up in the house. And a lot of people who already were dealing with things at home, whether it's problems with their kids, their husband, their finances, kick that on, topple that with the coronavirus and more police brutality. It's a
Yeah.
lot of people, suffering in silence. And I think they just fear being called weak. Like you
Yeah.
said earlier, Sheila, about some parents who feel like, I got to be super mom, super dad, and they
Hmm.
don't want to be labeled as weak.
Yeah. And
So,
that I'm glad you mentioned. I think that's a great phrase that captures it. That people are suffering in silence. And not only because they don't have the outlet to speak out about it, but the suffering is also coming at the hands of comorbidity, meaning
mhm.
that you may already have a mental health diagnosis, but you're trying to self medicate. So now you're drinking, you're taking medication that probably is not prescribed to you, that you done bought off the street or somebody else took it and, oh, I felt bad, so now you can have it. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to self-medicate, and that's exacerbating the symptoms that you're experiencing because that wasn't prescribed to you. You might be dealing with domestic violence issues because you're irritable, you're angry, you don't know why. It's now you're fighting with your partners. It's all these comorbid issues that make it worse. But if you can get to the root of it, perhaps it would make it a little bit more manageable.
Yeah.
When you add systemic oppression and systemic racism and poverty and all these other variables, it's a tough battle. It's an uphill battle, but it starts with the discussion.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. You got anything to add to that, Carmel Diva? And thank you. In the chat, the people are, giving us feedback. So I want to thank everybody that's, giving feedback in the chat. Thank everybody who's tuning in. Make sure you like the video and share the video. And onside April said she applauded us for discussing this issue. And she also said we as Black women have always been told we have to be strong.
Right.
And
Yeah.
again, we just talked about that, having that badge of honor that I have to be strong for these kids. I have to be strong for this family. I'm a firm believer. A part of being strong is acknowledging that there is a problem. It takes strength to
Right.
say, I'm not right. I need to get some help. That's strength. And so kind of redefining that so that you can't be your best for your family if you're not your best for yourself. If I'm
See, and
not
it
right,
took me a
everybody in the
while.
house right. So I got to get
Right.
me together.
And see, for a fact that it took me a while to acknowledge that there were issues that I was having. I still, to be honest, don't even know the base of why, but just the fact that I have an outlet to go to. And sometimes, you know what, to be honest, sometimes speaking to somebody who has no idea of my background, of my family situation, of, what I may have gone through, it makes it easier to talk to them and
Mm-hmm.
to try to get that help, that understanding that we may not be able to get from our family, from our friends,
Yeah.
and maybe even from our community.
Yeah.
It's in our culture. It's like a cultural thing to not, include these type of conversations. As we said, we got to stop making this like a taboo, discussion. Our culture, our personal beliefs, the way we was raised by mom and dad, don't nobody need to know our business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's in our culture. We have to change that as a community.
Yeah. And just, trying to just demonstrate a level of compassion and
Mm-hmm.
being non-judgmental. We're all dealing with something. I don't care
Right.
how well you think you got it put together, how much money you're making. Everybody has something they're dealing with. And
Yes.
so, to Keonti's point, it is easier sometimes to sit across from somebody that doesn't know you, doesn't have a conflict of interest, doesn't have this bias because they have a sense of information about you prior to you sitting down. It does make it easier because nobody wants to be judged. If you're feeling at your
Hmm.
lowest, you don't want somebody sitting across looking at you with a side eye, like, what's wrong with you? You
Right.
need somebody
Right.
that you can just be open with and really get to the root of the issue.
Well,
Yeah.
like I would have sought out, a pastor or a deacon, but you know how long we've been in our church. And that was one of the things I was not willing to do, is to sit there and, have them going through their head, well, what's wrong with her? She come from a good family. I've been knowing that family 50 years. Ain't
Yeah,
nobody else crazy in the family.
yeah,
And,
It's funny,
you
but
know,
it's true. It sounds funny, but it's true.
hmm
Like what's wrong with you? Ain't nothing wrong with your daddy, your sister, your brother.
yeah. I would challenge that because in some regards, some mental health diagnoses are hereditary.
Mm,
You can be genetically predisposed to certain diagnoses. It can be passed on.
mm,
Yet we know that a lot of people are walking around with undiagnosed mental health issues. They're
right.
going untreated. It's being passed off as something else. And so I just want to toss that in there, that it's not just usually one person that's dealing with it.
now
Yeah.
how do we now, like, as a onlooker, say you see uh somebody you're familiar with, and you can see that this person is having some kind of mental breakdown.
Mhm.
How do you broach that subject with them? How do you try to help them to get the necessary help that they need?
I think it's a matter of just opening up the dialogue. Something as simple as, just talk to me. Are you okay? How are you feeling? What's been going on with you? It's no complex formula that you have to sit down and fill out just to open up a conversation. Just sometimes asking somebody. Now, I think people do need to be careful of walking around trying to diagnose people without, not knowing the full understanding of what some of these diagnoses entail and what's the criterion to meet a certain diagnosis. But I think just a certain conversation, asking somebody, are you okay? I've noticed this. Do you want me to go with you? Let's look up some resources together. Being helpful in that sense could open up a whole new arena for people to get help, or a whole new platform for them to seek help.
Somebody said, thank you. Thank you, Sheila, for being such an important part of this crucial conversation. Black folks, women, men matter. Mental health and social work matters.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
And April said, she said that's a lie. I think she was referring to when we say women always gotta,
superwoman.
I feel like they got, and she said because if the mother or the breadwinner or the head of the household is not mentally all right, everything is not all right. The household is not all right.
Right.
Can I speak on that for a second? Because I read it in the comment before you just announced it. I think that is such an important aspect of this discussion. Because when you think about child rearing, you're your first example that you're setting for your children, correct?
Right.
So if you are walking around, but you're not talking about what's bothering you, or you're stuffing it, you're suppressing the issues, they never see you express any level of emotion, what are you training them to do? And so now you have these people, these little people who are growing up into adults that don't know emotion regulation. They don't know that it's okay to cry. They don't know that it's okay to be angry in a constructive manner. They don't know how to express those emotions because the examples that have been set is you don't show it, you're tough. Think about the toxic masculinity. If you have a little boy that's crying, man up, don't cry. We have to back away from some of these things that have hindered the African American community, and back away from these labels, that you're tough and strong and you don't show that type of emotion, because we're training the generation coming behind us to just be ineffective with emotion regulation and knowing that it's okay to demonstrate this. That's how you know you need help.
Yeah, and that's extra true with boys, because I have two sons, and we all know that we try to raise our boys to be strong, to be protectors, especially if they have little siblings or little sisters. But a lot of people, teach boys that is not okay to show weakness. It's not okay for you to
Or
cry.
emotion,
It's not
period.
okay to show emotions, because that's not really masculine. So that has something to do with parenting as well, especially if you have one of those dads who are really macho and tough, and So and then us women have to make sure we speak up for those boys in the household if we have a husband or boyfriend or baby father, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And I think a part of that is, again, being aware of what you're dealing with. How are you managing it? And if mama isn't okay, then nobody else in the house is going to be okay, because then they're mimicking and they're perpetuating the cycle that you're setting before them. Right. So it's important, it's okay if you're having a down moment, that you sit in that, be present with your feelings and work through it.
Yeah.
Now, what about the over emotional parent?
Again, that could be a symptom of some type of mental health issue. It's a balance.
And are we saying over emotional? Does that have something to do with overprotective?
No.
Okay, good.
Well, expand. When you're saying overly emotional, what do you mean by that?
It's something always wrong with them. Oh gosh, this is going on, and I got that, and I got this, and they crying all the time. I mean, every time you see this person, they crying. They how does that play into not necessarily raising a strong child, but somebody who, how do you go about raising a child that knows how to have that mental balance?
I think you just asked two different questions, so I want to make sure that I'm addressing them appropriately within the right context. Because what you're just the first part of what you described or that you posed, as far as somebody that there's always something wrong, they're always crying, that could be an array of things. I mean, of course, you would have to kind of look at how long, what's the duration of some of these symptoms they're displaying. Does this happen across all domains, or does this just happen in particular environments where they demonstrate these type of traits? That can be anything, a mood disorder. They could be depressed. It could be a personality disorder. That can be an array of things. And so that's too broad of a description for me to try to narrow it down into one thing. But I think you just have to kind of take into context what's going on with that particular person. As far as if that is a person that is child rearing, are you asking how does that then influence the child?
Yeah.
They could then be learning that, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is a normal part of the experience. So some kids could grow up to mimic that behavior, or they could want to be the polar opposite of it because now they're always trying to coddle that particular parent, or now the child is parenting the parent. So it's an array of responses. It's no different than a kid that may grow up in a household with an alcoholic parent. Either you're going to repeat the cycle or you're going to do the complete opposite. I think it's kind of along the lines of that same discussion. It's kind of a parallel discussion. But as far as a kid coming up in that type of household, hopefully they have some type of outlet that they can step into to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing at home. Is this right? Is this wrong? How do I deal with it? They need an outlet to kind of manage what they're experiencing, how they're perceiving it.
Well, let me No, I'm sorry.
No, I was saying, I was asking, did that answer her question?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me read some more comments. On side, April said, I realized I could not be both. I have 8 sons. I could not teach them how to be men. When I realized that, I reached out to the big brothers, big sisters, 100 Black men, and other male mentorships.
Yeah. And that's fair. I stress, just be mindful of who you're allowing to be that mentor, to be that model for your child, male or female. And just making sure that they're setting a healthy and balanced example for them to step into. Because again, especially with Black boys, it's too much toxic masculinity going on in regards to how tough you're supposed to be and what crying means. Crying is not weakness. Crying is a sign of strength. You're getting it out. That's the way to grow. So just making sure that they have a healthy sense of what balanced mental health is, what is healthy mental health hygiene, those type of factors when you are tapping into somebody serving as a mentor or a big brother or big sister.
Yeah, and somebody got a question for you.
Okay.
Miss Sislow Newsworthy Update. She says, how do you deal with a person in denial of having a mental illness episode?
Oh.
It's tough. I think initially, if this is like a first psychotic break or just first episode, whatever that symptom may include, you just provide that support. Look into resources for them. Again, do you need me to go to the doctor with you? Can I look up some resources for you? Validating how they feel. That's a big part of it. Sometimes people just need that validation that, okay, something is wrong with me. It's okay that I feel this way. You recognize it too. So it's not just me. Sometimes they just need that validation to kind of step forward into their truth and seek out the resources that they may need. I know sometimes it can be hard for a person that is consistently denying that there is an issue. They can start to burn bridges, especially if they are very symptomatic or they have symptoms that are extremely problematic. And I'm thinking of those that may have more severe and persistent mental illnesses, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, psychosis, things of that nature. They quickly burn out their bridges if they are in denial or they don't understand. Just knowing when you need to step away to take care of you because you're exhausted with trying to aid this person or help them, there's a balance. But all you can do is just try to be a support, build that support team around them, get them the resources that they need, and hopefully they get to a point, that they want the help, because nobody can be helped unless they want it.
That's true. Now something just popped in my head, and I thought about it. It's part of the distrust in the Black community as far as mental health goes. Is that, do you think our history as Black people, like say like with the Tuskegee program, with that experiment and other experimenting that has gone on Black people, do you think that has a lot to do with Black people not seeking
Trusting
the help?
healthcare professionals.
Or like the
Definitely.
medication, I'm not taking that medicine. They just trying to use me as a guinea pig and blah blah. Instead of
Definitely.
taking, go ahead.
There's
I'm
like
sorry.
a mistrust of there's kind of like a mistrust in our community too with doctors. And sometimes it begins with, having more beliefs that you should seek faith and seek God and seek church. Like they feel like they can trust them more. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a mistrust, and for obvious reasons, there's a mistrust by the Black community of healthcare professionals in general.
Yeah.
When you think about, we have been used as guinea pigs. We have been misdiagnosed, or our health issues have been misdiagnosed.
Right.
We've been labeled as, oh, they're just being extra, or they're exaggerating their symptoms, and so we don't get the proper medical care that we need. All of those things factor into that resistance to accessing certain systems, including the mental health system.
Yeah.
So how do we bridge that gap then? I mean, I know, I know you're saying, ask somebody how they're feeling and stuff, but as far as the general consensus of not trusting healthcare, how do we bridge that gap?
I think one of the things is being a personal advocate for yourself. If you know that something is wrong, but you're not necessarily in agreement with what the feedback that you're getting from healthcare professionals, advocating for yourself, whether that means like, no, I'm not leaving, I know something's wrong, or I don't feel this medication is right, or, just being able to speak and advocate for yourself, and advocating if you are a support system to an individual who's trying to navigate the mental health sector, being a support to them, being an advocate for them. Um, there's plenty of community, groups that are out there that are trying to bridge this gap and address these disparagings in the African American community with accessing mental health resources. So there's a number of things that can be done, but I think making mental health resources more visible in African American communities, again, normalizing the experience that it's okay. Just like you see liquor stores, grocery stores, schools, libraries, whatever you're seeing in that community, they need to see mental health centers as well. So that it's more visible, it's more accessible. I think that's one way of accessing it. When you're looking at North Omaha, you shouldn't have to drive all the way out west just to go to a therapist.
True.
Right.
We have these resource centers in our community so that they see it. It's more accessible. You can't access it if you can't see it. If you don't know that it exists, how are you going to know to go there? So increasing that visibility, making it a more part of a normalized conversation, a normalized experience. Just as you have physical ailments, if you have mental health issues, they need to be taken care of as well.
That's very true. And somebody else asked, what advice do you have to those who feel it's an act or you can beat the issue out of that patient? That sounds like something like might have a lot to do with smaller, like children too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, that advocacy part. If you know that something, if I'm understanding this question correctly, if this person really knows that something's wrong and it's not just an act, but the family may think that, or whomever else is involved in that social circle may think, oh, they just playing. that person has to be an advocate for themselves. You can be an advocate for that person. So just really speaking up and stepping into your truth, whether it's you or that person. You know when something's wrong. So instead of needing that consent from outside parties or needing somebody else to co-sign on, yeah, I think you do need some help. You know you better than anybody else. So don't be afraid to step into that truth and seek the help that you need.
Yeah, please.
As far as beating the issue out of a patient, if we're talking about that whole topic of corporal punishment, yeah, I think that might be another episode or table talk.
Yeah, we don't have to. Yeah, we might have to. That's a whole nother issue because I think I'd have had that done to me many times when I was young.
Yeah, but
I just want to talk, Mom. I just want to talk.
My simplistic response to that is you cannot beat mental health out of somebody. So get them some help. Get them some help.
You can beat it into them.
You sure can.
You're creating issues.
Yeah, that'll make somebody really depressed, and I mean, because that's part of our history. You know, that's part of one of the reasons why a lot of us are the way we are, because, you know, historically, dehumanization, oppression, violence, and we have so much violence still right now, you know, between even black on black and with police officers. And then again, the COVID, I mean, it's a lot of things, people losing their jobs, can't pay their bills, losing their homes. There's so many things going on right now. And it's a lot of people out there who are dealing mentally with a load of stuff on their shoulders. And a lot of them aren't seeking treatment. We have to seek treatment. Find somebody you trust. Talk to somebody, you know, get a referral, because it is, you know, a lot of people, like you said before, you know, some people, if you're Black, African American, they feel like they have to have a therapist or doctor who looks like them. And somebody had mentioned in the chat that they said when they seek, you know, treatment, they always made sure all their doctors were Black. And if that's what it takes, that's what you need, then, you know, do your research.
Yeah.
Find somebody to talk to.
Now, I have kind of been on this social justice kick here lately. And you were saying, you know, the accessibility and making sure that these places are seen, they're known about. Do you think we should kind of, and not fully, but kind of go back to how the Black community used to be, where we were all basically exclusive, where we had Black therapists, we have Black grocery stores, Black dentists, Black, you know, do you think we should almost kind of isolate ourselves to help ourselves to get back to being?
There's two sides to every coin. And while I think it is beneficial to build up the community, the Black community, in a sense of we don't have to go outside these parameters if we don't need to. I can go down the street to whatever doctor I need to see, to whatever mental health professional I need to access. I think that is of great benefit. Do I think we need to solely limit ourselves to these communities? I'm not going to go that far, but I do think it is a benefit. You know, the more that we can see amongst ourselves, the more aptitude we have to expand outside of our communities and, you know, flourish more. So, yes, I do think it is of benefit, you know, that we do expand Black-owned businesses to include Black-owned mental health clinics, Black-owned family practice centers, Black-owned dentistries. I do think it's a great benefit because it's not only giving us accessibility, but you're setting examples for what we can do and what we can be. We all don't have to just strive to be the next basketball player, the next rapper.
Yep. And I just want to say, and I want to add to that, you know, how, you know, people like to always say, you know, Black owned, we should spend our money with Black owned and all that. But we got to remember also, everybody who looks like us don't deserve our service. They don't deserve our coinage. They don't deserve our bags. So still, you want to do your research. Don't just go to anybody, because just like there's, you know, somebody might like this black restaurant. Somebody might not like them. Somebody might, so sometimes it takes going to several different services before you find the right one as well. So it's okay to be like, I'm only spending my dollars with black people, but make sure that they're, they can actually help you, and
make sure they're reputable.
Right, and they're reputable, that's where you got to do your research sometime. But
one thing I want to add to that, Tanya, because I think that's an important conversation. And I'm going to preface this. This is no shade to anyone.
Okay.
But I do think it's important, like you said, to do your research. It's important to do your research, because I do think there are a lot of people that are passing off as, oh yeah, I'm a social worker. Oh yeah, I'm a therapist. And you have not been properly trained to carry out that particular service, which could be a hindrance to that person who's seeking out help, and you don't know how to manage what they're coming with. This is no shade again to people who are throwing around this whole title of I'm a life coach. That's all fine and dandy, but not all life coaches, I'm not going to say any, are certified to necessarily navigate some individuals who are presenting with mental health diagnoses. You need to see a credentialed professional that understands and knows how to manage some of the things that they may be dealing with. Again, it's no shade to anybody that is walking that particular path as a life coach. I think life coaches are great.
Did she say Diana?
I'm not going to get started on her, but but I just think people need to be careful with that, because sometimes
it can be at the table. Go and talk about it.
It can be a disservice. I think life coaches are great for certain things that people are navigating. Relationships, that's great. Finding jobs, getting yourself together, that's great. There's a niche for life coaches. I get that. But for some individuals that are really dealing with mental health issues, you need to see a mental health professional.
Yes.
I had to throw that out there. I would be remiss if I did not. Somebody just asked, am I in Dallas? Yes, I'm in the DFW area.
Yes. Yep. 2216. She is down there in Texas. Yes, she is. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight again. Everybody,
yes.
Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the Hood Table. If you're not already subscribed, I want to give a humongous shout out. This is Sheila's second time being at the Hood Table with us, discussing issues like this within the Black.
She old bit now. She old bit.
I love her because she's so brilliant and intelligent and full of knowledge. So everybody, please, please, please give her a big thank you.
That's that hot comb. That's why.
She got that good hair down there.
It's an inside joke.
2 quick resources I want to leave you guys with before I sign off.
Okay.
Because I think they are of importance. A lot of people are not aware that through the agencies that you work for, especially if you work for corporations,
EAP,
certain agencies, you have access to employee assistance programs. It's called the EAP. You can get therapy sessions for free. Most of them offer anywhere between 6 to 8 sessions. It is completely anonymous. Your job doesn't have to know anything about it. It's usually a third-party entity that is providing the service, so nobody knows that you're even going. Go look into your benefits packages with your job to see if they do offer the EAP. That's a great resource for many people to utilize if you are employed and your agency provides it. Utilize it. It's free. It's to your benefit. And then lastly, suicide hotline, crisis line. You need somebody to talk to. You're thinking about suicide. You're having suicidal ideation, suicidal plans. 800-273-8255.
Say that again.
The suicide crisis hotline. 800-273-8255.
Okay, I'm put
I'm
that.
glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you so much. I'm putting that in the chat right now.
Perfect.
Just in case. Suicide hotline 800-273-8255.
Yes, totally free, 24/7. Sometimes people just need somebody to talk to. Feel free to use those resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
And
you
what
guys
Would you
again for
recommend like
having me.
Boys Town?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, would you recommend like I think there's a Boys Town hotline too that people can call and talk to.
Yeah, I'm
I don't
not
have.
as familiar. I know they have one. I just don't know that information readily accessible. But the
Mhm.
suicide hotline, crisis line, that is nationwide. You don't
Yeah.
have to just be in a particular area. You can be anywhere
Yeah.
and
Right.
utilize that number.
Yeah. So yeah, you utilize those resources, the suicide hotline, especially if you feel, like you can't go on, like there's nobody you can discuss things with. And also us as a people, as friends, family, co-workers, neighbors, if you notice anybody or if anybody mentions anything to you that they're going through things like that, when we tell people you can call me anytime, I'm
Hmm.
always there to listen. Sometimes that's a cliche, response,
Yep.
but we have to really, really mean it when we say it. If you're telling somebody to call you anytime, if they call you at
Mhm.
2 o'clock in the morning, don't be like, "Oh, girl, I'm asleep." But they could be really at
Right.
the end of their rope. They might need only a few minutes of your time to
Right.
talk to
Right.
you, or invite them to lunch the next day. So yeah, we have to start being there for each other and stop looking at each other like, oh, they just crazy, they bipolar, things like that. So yeah, we have to recognize the signs and be there for each other.
Because
Agreed.
I definitely appreciate you coming on, especially last minute. Um,
No problem.
I, the level of intelligence and information that you gave to us tonight is of great importance. This is a conversation that needs to be had, and it also needs to be continued.
Hmm.
Um, Especially in our community. I think we're starting to get a little bit better as far as getting mental health, but we really need to start stressing it that it is okay to seek mental health help. And, I appreciate you coming on and imparting those words of wisdom with us tonight.
No problem. I
Yeah,
appreciate you guys for having me. If you ever
yeah.
need me in the future, you know how to reach me.
We will. Thank you. And thank you also, Miss Sislo, in the chat. She was reminding people that it is National Mental
Yes,
Health Awareness Month. So,
Oh,
it
is
is.
it? I didn't even know that.
yeah,
Mhm.
see that's one of the reasons why I thought you wanted to broach this subject because of that.
Uh-uh.
But yeah,
That wasn't why.
right,
Yeah.
But look
because
at God.
it don't have to be October, but I'm glad that, I'm not just am I glad that it's October? You know what I mean? I'm glad
I
that
get you.
we broached the subject, during this month.
Yeah.
Feel like we're kind of doing our part as on the hood table. We talk about a lot of different things on here. We joke, we have fun, but we also, tackle really serious issues, especially in our community. So yeah, we have to recognize that. Might as well recognize it. It is National Mental Health Awareness Month.
Cool
So
beans.
Beautiful.
yes. Thank
All
you,
right, you
ladies.
guys. You have a good night.
Thank you,
Good
ladies. Thank you
night,
so much,
cuz.
Sheila. You
Thank
have a
you.
wonderful night.
Love
All
you,
right.
baby.
Love you
All right.
too. Bye
Talk to
bye.
you later.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, Karma Diva. Thank you so much for inviting your family member, your cousin, again on our platform. I just love her.
Thank you.
And everybody in the chat, remember, like, share, and subscribe to the Hood Table. And
Show
tomorrow night
love
is
to one
Friday Night
another.
Live. Yes, yes. Show love to one another. And don't forget tomorrow night, 9 p.m., Friday Night Live. Tune in, come with your discussions, come with your topics,
Uh-oh.
because there's no topics off limit
Oh
every
boy.
Friday night. Every Friday night at 9 o'clock. So, we talk about any and everything from the hood to the White House, y'all.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Y'all know
But
how
on that
we
note,
do it.
oh, they know. If they don't know, they better ask somebody. You better ask somebody. But yeah, on that note, everybody, stay safe, be blessed, remain vigilant. We out.
Keep it hood.
Always. Deuces.
Peace.
Peace.